A poor girl hugged the wrong man at the airport, and he turned out to be the most powerful billionaire in the city. What happened next changed both their lives forever. Before we begin, subscribe, like, and share this video. Comment below where you're watching from and rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story, everyone. The airport was chaos. Voices everywhere. Wheels dragging across floors. Announcements echoing from every direction. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, Lily Shaw stood on her tiptoes, desperately scanning the crowd. Her brother was finally coming home. She had been counting down the days. Weeks, actually. And now here she was, heart racing, eyes searching, completely ignoring everything and everyone around her. Then she saw him. Tall, dark hair, broad shoulders, standing just a few feet ahead with his back to her. That's him. She didn't think. She just moved, weaving through the crowd, ducking past luggage, and closing the distance as fast as her legs would carry her. And then she threw herself into his arms. The hug was tight, warm, everything she had been waiting for. Except, something was wrong. He smelled different. Not like her brother. This was something deeper, a sophisticated woody cologne that had absolutely no business being this expensive. His chest was too firm, too still, like a wall that hadn't been expecting her at all. Lily's heart stopped. She pulled back slowly, looked up. Gray eyes stared down at her. Sharp features, a perfectly tailored dark suit, a face she had never seen before in her life. This was not her brother. This was a complete stranger. Lily jumped back so fast she nearly knocked over the woman behind her. "Oh my God, I am so sorry. I thought you were. You looked like the shoulders and the hair, and I just..." The man raised one eyebrow, said nothing, just looked at her with an expression caught somewhere between shock and something that looked dangerously close to amusement. Lily wanted the airport floor to open up and swallow her whole. It didn't, and somewhere in that moment, without either of them knowing it yet, something began. Lily was still trying to remember how to breathe. She had taken exactly 3 steps backward and was considering a 4th when a large shadow fell over her. A security guard, massive, dressed in all black, looking at her the way people look at something that definitely should not be there. "Mr. Cross." His voice was low and firm. "Is everything all right?" Lily froze. Cross. Ethan Cross. The name landed like a punch to the chest. The billionaire who never gave interviews, who avoided cameras like they were a disease, who had more power in one phone call than most people had in a lifetime. She had just hugged him, like he was her brother. The shame that hit her was not normal shame. It was the kind that reaches all the way down to your bones and stays there. She turned back to face him, already preparing the most professional apology of her life. But Ethan Cross was smiling. Not a polite smile. Not a cold corporate smile. A real one. Slow and genuine. Like this was the most interesting thing that had happened to him in months. "You look terrified," he said calmly. "I am," Lily replied. He almost laughed. She turned and disappeared into the crowd as fast as humanly possible. But even with her back to him, she could still feel his eyes following her. And something told her this was not over. The next day, Lily tied her apron tight and made herself a promise. Forget happened. Move on. Never think about it again. She was doing well too. Right up until Mr. Grant called her name from across the counter. "Lily. Special order. Table 12. She grabbed the tray, walked through the cafe, rehearsed her professional smile. Then she looked up and stopped breathing. Ethan Cross was sitting right there, one arm resting on the back of the chair. Dark suit, completely relaxed, gray eyes already locked onto her like he had been watching the door since the moment she walked in. He had found her, and from the look on his face, he had done it on purpose. Lily placed the coffee down without a word and turned to leave immediately. "Running again?" His voice came quietly from behind her. She stopped, turned slowly. "I don't run," she said. "You ran at the airport." That was a strategic exit. Ethan smiled. Of course it was. She crossed her arms. He leaned back, and somehow, without either of them planning it, they were talking. Really talking. He teased. She fired back without missing a beat. He pushed. She didn't budge. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Ethan Cross was genuinely entertained by another person. One visit became two. Two became five. And by the end of the week, Ethan Cross, a man who ran entire companies from a single phone call, was showing up at a small airport cafe, like he had nowhere else in the world to be. Same table, same time, same request. Lily specifically. Mr. Grant was visibly uncomfortable. He smiled too wide whenever Ethan walked in, and then turned around and shot Lily looks that said this is becoming a problem. Her co-workers whispered constantly. She could feel their eyes every time she walked to table 12. But none of that bothered her as much as the reason she couldn't figure out. Why was he here? Lily Shaw was not rich, not powerful, not connected to anyone who mattered in Ethan's world. She was a girl who split her paycheck between rent and her brother's medical bills and considered a full night's sleep a luxury. So why did Ethan Cross keep coming back? She asked him once directly. No softening it. He looked at her for a moment before answering. Because you look at me like I'm just a person. Lily didn't know what to say to that, and that scared her more than anything else. The napkin sat on her kitchen counter for 3 hours. An address. A time. Nothing else. Lily told herself she wouldn't go. Made a list of reasons in her head. Solid reasons. Logical reasons. And then at 7:58, she was standing outside the restaurant smoothing her jacket and questioning every decision she had ever made. Inside, Ethan was already there. No bodyguard. No entourage. Just him. Sitting at a quiet corner table like a regular person who had simply made a reservation. He stood when he saw her. You came. Don't make it a big deal, she said, sitting down. He smiled and didn't push it. The dinner was nothing like she expected. No showing off. No talk of money or power or status. Just conversation, real conversation. Ethan asked about her life and actually listened. He shared stories from his childhood that made her laugh. He admitted things she never expected a man like him to admit. And Lily realized somewhere between the main course and the end of the night, she had been completely wrong about him. Outside the restaurant, the night air was cool. Without a word, Ethan draped his jacket over her shoulders. She eyed him immediately. He just smiled. Walking home alone that night, Lily could not deny it. That was one of the best evenings of her life. The dress was just sitting there on her kitchen counter. No note, no explanation, just an elegant box and a text from Ethan that said, "Tonight, 8 o'clock. Lily called him immediately. I don't belong in your world, Ethan. Why not? She opened her mouth, closed it, had absolutely nothing. She wore the dress. The event was everything she expected. Chandeliers, designer clothes, people who looked at your shoes before they looked at your face. Lily stayed close to Ethan and tried to look like she belonged there. For a while it worked. Then Vivian appeared. Tall, blonde, a smile so sharp it could cut glass. She crossed the room like she owned it, eyes moving straight to Lily with one slow look that said exactly what she thought. Ethan, darling, she said, placing a hand on Ethan's arm. What an interesting guest you've brought. Lily felt her jaw tighten. Before she could say a single word, Ethan quietly reached down and took her hand. Fingers intertwined, calm and deliberate. Find another table, Vivian, he said simply. The room went still. Lily's heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat, because Ethan Cross, the most powerful man in that room, had just chosen her, publicly, quietly, without hesitation, and she felt it all the way to her bones. It started with a conversation she wasn't even part of. Two co-workers talking behind the counter. Something about a corporation. Old businesses bought up years ago. Bankruptcies. A restaurant downtown that never recovered. Lily's hand stopped moving. Which restaurant? She asked quietly. Her co-worker looked up, surprised. Shaw's. You know it. The cup in Lily's hand almost slipped. Shaw's. Her family's restaurant. The place her parents had built from nothing. Every table, every recipe, every memory soaked into those walls. The place they had lost and never fully recovered from. And the corporation responsible. Cross Enterprises. Ethan. Lily was in a cab before she could think. At his door before she could breathe. When Ethan opened it and saw her face, he already knew something was wrong. "Your company," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were not. "You destroyed my family's restaurant." Silence. Not a denial. Not an explanation. Just silence. And that silence, that one moment, broke something inside her that she didn't know was still standing. "This whole time," she whispered. "Lily, don't." She turned and walked out. No tears. No looking back. Just the sound of the door closing behind her. And everything she thought she knew falling apart. A week passed. No visits. No messages. No Ethan. The cafe felt different without him, and Lily hated that she noticed. She hated that table 12 looked wrong when someone else sat there. She hated that she kept glancing at the door. She hated how much she missed him. Then one evening, just after closing, the door opened. Ethan walked in looking nothing like himself. The usual confidence in his eyes was gone. He looked tired, heavy, like someone carrying something he didn't know how to put down. "Just listen," he said quietly. "Please." Lily didn't move, but she didn't leave either. He explained everything. He hadn't known about her family's restaurant. The acquisition had been handled years ago by others in his company. When he found out, days after they first met, he was just as devastated as she was. Lily wanted to believe him. She also knew how easy it was to say the right words. Ethan didn't push. He simply placed an envelope on the table, looked at her one last time, and walked out. She opened it slowly. Inside was the deed to Shaw's restaurant, signed over to her. No conditions, no debt, no strings attached. Just a man trying the only way he knew how to fix what had been broken long before he ever walked into her life. She hadn't even decided what to do about the deed yet. The envelope was still sitting on her kitchen table when her phone rang. Late. Too late for a normal call. Hospital. Lily answered before the second ring finished. The doctor's voice was calm but urgent. The kind of calm that people use when they are trying not to scare you while scaring you completely. Sam had taken a sudden turn. His kidney condition had worsened faster than anyone expected. He needed emergency surgery. Tonight, Lily was out the door before the call ended. She ran. She didn't remember the cab. She didn't remember the hospital entrance. She just remembered the waiting room, white walls, cold chairs, and a clock on the wall that moved too slowly. The surgery cost was more than she had, more than she could pull together in time, more than any option she could think of in those few desperate minutes. Lily sat with her face in her hands, and without thinking, without planning, she picked up her phone and called the only person that felt right in that moment. Ethan answered on the second ring. She barely got 3 words out before he stopped her. "I'm on my way." No hesitation, no questions, no conditions. Just that, and the sound of him already moving. Ethan arrived within minutes. No fanfare, no questions. He walked straight to the front desk, spoke to the doctors quietly, signed whatever needed signing, and made sure Sam had the best possible care before Lily could even process what was happening. Then he sat down beside her in the waiting room and said nothing, just stayed. Hours passed. The clock moved slowly. The hallway stayed quiet, and through all of it Ethan never left, never checked his phone, never made her feel like this was an inconvenience. He was just there. When the doctor finally appeared and said the surgery was a success, Lily broke. The relief hit her so hard her legs almost gave out, and before she could think, before she could stop herself, she turned and held onto Ethan. Not like the airport, not a mistake, not confusion, just her choosing him. Ethan wrapped his arms around her without a word and held her like she was something worth holding. Later that night they sat outside on a hospital bench under an open sky. Quiet, still. Lily looked at him, really looked, and stopped fighting every feeling she had spent weeks pushing down. She leaned forward slowly and kissed him. Ethan stilled for just 1 second, then held her face gently in both hands and kissed her back. And everything that had broken between them quietly, finally, started to heal. Shaw's restaurant reopened on a Tuesday. Simple, warm, exactly what it had always been, just alive again. Sam stood by the door greeting every customer like he owned the place. Lily watched from behind the counter with tears she refused to let fall. For the first time in years, everything felt right. That evening Ethan took her somewhere small. A quiet, cozy restaurant with soft lighting and no dress code. Nothing like his usual world. Lily noticed immediately and loved him for it without saying so. Halfway through dinner he reached into his pocket. A small box landed softly on the table between them. Lily's heart stopped completely. Ethan took her hand, looked at her. No smirk, no deflection, nothing between them. "I have never been good at this," he said quietly. "Showing what I feel. Saying the right thing. My whole life the people around me only ever saw what I had, never who I was." He paused. "Except you. From the moment you threw yourself at a complete stranger in an airport, you never once treated me like anything other than a normal person." His hand tightened around hers. "I don't want to imagine my life without you, Lily." She didn't wait for him to finish. Yes, just that. No hesitation, no fear, just yes. The garden was everything Lily had ever dreamed of without knowing it. Soft string lights hung between old trees. White flowers lined every path, and the evening air smelled like jasmine and something new. There were no grand halls, no hundreds of strangers, just the people who had earned their seats in this story. Sam appeared at her door, looking impossibly composed, until he saw her. His breath caught, his eyes filled. He offered his arm and whispered, "Dad would have loved this." Lily squeezed his hand and said nothing, because nothing needed to be said. At the end of the aisle stood Ethan. Perfectly tailored suit, perfect posture, and the moment his eyes found her, all of it quietly dissolved. His jaw tightened, his eyes softened. The man who had rebuilt himself from nothing stood completely undone by a woman in white walking toward him. Their vows were not rehearsed speeches. They were truths, spoken slowly, like they were handling something precious. "I choose you on the easy days and the impossible ones. I choose you when I understand you and when I don't. I choose you every single morning." When they kissed, the small crowd exhaled as one. At the reception, Sam stood with a glass raised and a smirk that warned everyone something was coming. "I once told Lily that accidentally hugging strangers was embarrassing," he began. "I would like to formally apologize." Laughter rolled through every table. Then his voice dropped. "She found her person in the most Lily way possible, completely by accident, completely perfectly. There was not a dry eye remaining." Later, when the lights dimmed and the last guest disappeared down the garden path, Ethan found her standing alone beneath the string lights, shoes off, head tilted toward the stars. He walked up slowly, wrapped his arms around her from behind, and rested his chin on her shoulder. "Thank you," he murmured, "for hugging the wrong man." Lily smiled, that quiet, certain smile she only ever gave him. She turned in his arms, pressed her face against his chest, and listened to the steady beat of a heart that had waited a long time to feel like home. "Best mistake I ever made," she whispered. And in the soft glow of that garden, with the whole world hushed around them, it was not an ending at all. It was simply where everything real began. So tell me, did Lily make the right choice trusting Ethan after everything that happened? Drop your answer in the comments right now. If this story hit different, smash that like button. Share it with someone who needs a good love story today. And subscribe, so you never miss what comes next. The next story is already waiting for you. And trust me, you don't want to miss it.